Hey, what's up? Zach here, and this is the ultimate basketball shoe guide for the beginning of winter 2025 and also the end of 2024. Let's get into it. And in every ultimate shoe guide, I try to throw in something a little bit different, something a little bit updated. In this one, that is no difference. There will be maybe a category or two new in this video, but as always, remember, if you're looking for a specific shoe for very specific purposes, let's say you're somebody with flat feet, heel pain, and you're maybe like a big center, just look for the shoe that matches up with all three of those categories, and whichever shoe or shoes, because usually there's a few of them, match up in that category, that's usually the one I am going to recommend. So let's get started with number one, as always, foot type. All right, so if you're someone like me who has a wide foot, either a 2E, which is wide, or 4E, which is very wide, you're gonna need something that either number one comes wide lasted, like the Adidas Dame Certified 3, or something that comes in width, like the New Balance 2-Way V5 2E. And the nice thing for women with wide feet is if that a shoe comes in women's sizes and men's sizes, you can always shift to the men's size because usually that's gonna be just a millimeter or two wider, and so you're kind of getting the wider width shoe, quote unquote, without having to sacrifice some length in a lot of cases. Now, if a shoe comes in a unisex size, obviously that's not the case, but kind of same thing goes for men in terms of narrow shoes. If you can find the women's colorways, a lot of times they're gonna be a hair more narrow, or you can just go with a shoe that has a narrow last, something like the Jordan Zion 3. And if you're someone with just an average size foot, more of a true width foot, then really you can break in really any narrow-footed shoe half size up as long as it's not too long. That's why you always got to look for the length of those. That's why I have the basketball shoe buyer's guide that's linked in the description, because you can actually sort by how long a shoe is as well as width, so you can match up which shoes you can actually go up a half size in, or you can get any shoe that is wider, obviously, as long as you're not swimming in them. But really for a medium width player, as long as you're not going too far on either end of the spectrum, kind of the world's your oyster. Now, if you're somebody with a higher arch, also like me, you're gonna want something with a little bit more padding in the heel and the ball of the foot. That doesn't mean squishmallow, that doesn't mean super soft and squishy, but it means something with just shock absorptive capabilities both in the forefoot and the rear foot. The Curry Flow line shoes, because Flow Foam really is very good for high arch players. That is a nice mixture of density as well as forgiveness. And Zoom Air, like in the LeBron 22, is also a really nice choice because it doesn't bulk the shoe up too much, but gives you outsized cushion and bounce for how small of a unit it really is. And in almost every universal shoe guide I say the same thing. If you're a flat-footed player, a lot of times the best shoes for high arch players are also good for you just because of the support capabilities. But if you are somebody with a flat arch, you want a shoe that can, number one, at least hold an orthotic in it, and number two, not allow a ton of eversion, right, or overpronation. Some basketball shoes do put you pretty foot flat to the ground, and that's a good thing. Keeps you nice and stable, can prevent rolling your ankle. That's actually a feature, not a bug. But if you are somebody with a little bit more of a flat foot, you're gonna just want something with a little bit more of a stout arch. Right now, the Wade Shadow 6 was kind of a sneaky pick that has a really nice medial side of the shoe, as well as the Wade All City 12 Encore. And speaking of those orthotics, whether you're someone that's using more of a low profile orthotic or a bulky custom orthotic, you need a shoe that has really good lockdown. Now, that either means a lot of bunting and padding in the heel counter of the shoe, a runner's knot, higher lace eyelet system, something that's going to lock you in the shoe. Right now, the AG5 is really spectacular for that. That being said, let's get into the second category, which is game style and performance. Now, if you're looking for a good shoe for multiple games in one day, multiple long practices, just a shoe that's gonna be a little bit more lively and just, that's not gonna make your legs feel super tired like a brick. Obviously, anything in the thermoplastic category, now that isn't all shoes, but a lot of them are going to be some of the better shoes. Also, shoes that have a nice stout arch to them are really good for that. Right now, the Way of Wade 11, I think, is a really spectacular shoe for that. Also, something like the Puma All Pro Nitro, also a really nice pickup. Now, if you're filling the role of your team's big, obviously you're gonna need a shoe that has a lot of support, but also enough hops to where if you're jumping up and down trying to get rebounds all the time, you're not straining yourself, right? Or you're not just inducing a ton of shock up your legs. Once again, the AG5 is quite a good pickup for this, but also a little bit more of a lower profile option, be the LeBron 22. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, if you're someone that plays the guard or wing position, you need to get more side-to-side speed, a little bit more nimble, shifty speed. Something like the Nike Sabrina 2 or the New Balance Kawhi 4 is really gonna kind of tick all those boxes. And honestly, I get asked what is the quote unquote bounciest shoe all the time. That is one of the most common questions I get. And that question can take you down a rabbit hole that can be a little bit misleading. Because a lot of times, even if a shoe has super bouncy foam, it doesn't necessarily mean that the shoe is actually good for getting lift up off the ground. Remember, you gotta take into account the shank of that shoe, what is that doing, the weight of the shoe, all of those things. So right now, honestly, the Kawhi 4 from New Balance, still one of the better ones out there. I've said for a long time that the Curry Signature line shoes are sneakily good for people looking for lift and balance because of the flow foam plus the 4-foot loaded shank, but also you really can't sleep on the Way of Weight 11. All those shoes or shoes similar to that, I think are some of the best ones out there because you get the diving board effect of the shank as well as the lively foam. But if you're someone that really needs to put on the brakes and you pride yourself on being able to create space while others are getting crossed up or falling all over the place, and you want a shoe for really good side-to-side containment. That starts in the midsole of the shoe with the shank and then moves to the periphery of the shoe. The Way of Weight 12 Encore is a really fantastic pickup for this, as is the Yenta Shockwave 6 Pro. And if all you care about is speed, getting up and down the court as quick as possible, fast breaks, right? Just being able to turn on the jets really quick. Still really the best two shoes on the market. This was the same as the last Ultimate Shoe Guide, would be the Leaning Gamma as well as the New Balance Kawhi 4. And if all you care about is durability, you need a shoe that number one isn't gonna collapse in the midsole right away, number two is gonna resist wear in the outsole as well as uppers. Right now, once again, the Wade Shadow 6 is a nice pickup. The Yenta Shockwave 6 Pro, I know I've said that a million times in this video, is a decent pickup, as well as if you can get them, the Yenta Zap 1, the Zap 2s, or the Yenta GH5. I know that shoe might be a little bit harder to find, but if you can, that shoe also is pretty darn good shoe for kind of all around durability. But if the only surface you're putting your shoes on is, clean indoor hardwood, indoor vinyl, those type of courts, and you want something for pretty nimble grip, the Jordan Luka 3 is actually a really good pickup for this, as is the Nike Sabrina 2. And if you're looking for a shoe that's really consistent on both indoor hardwood, rubberized, and vinyl, as well as outdoor asphalt, cement, and concrete, kind of one shoe for all surfaces, something like the New Balance 2-Way V5 is really a nice kind of in-between pickup there because it resists wear enough outside, but it also has enough sure-footed grip on the indoor courts to and they're also easy enough to clean off to make them a good choice for both courts. And if you're one of the legends that plays outdoor basketball in tennis shoes, because yeah, tennis shoes are quite a good pickup for outdoor basketball given their side-to-side containment as well as their resistance to wear. Of course, the New Balance Coco CG2 is a really good pickup. As of filming this video, the sizes have been a little bit limited, but they've told me that those are gonna get wider. The Lacoste AGLT 23 Ultra is also a really fantastic pickup for that. All right, so let's get into the final category, which is injuries, body type, recovery, and chronic conditions. Now, in terms of recovery footwear, it really is dealer's choice on kind of how you like to recover, but if you're looking for a court shoe to recover in, the K-Swiss Hypercourt Supreme 2 and the 361 Degrees Big 3 5.0 Quick Pro, some of my favorites. However, if you're looking for a slide to recover in, then of course the Zen by Xenon, which is the recovery slide I helped design, at least in my opinion, is the best out there. That's because this is a mixture of TPEE foam, thermoplastic polyester elastomer foam, as well as rubberized EVA. These things have enough support in them to allow you to actually recover so that you're not trying to, control the slide because the slide is squishing under your feet too much, but it's also forgiving enough that it doesn't feel like something rock hard under you. It is wide enough in the midfoot to give you a nice stable base. So even though the stack on these is very generous, it also doesn't feel like you're trying to balance yourself on a stilt, right? That's kind of how we designed the shape of these. So if you are looking for the ultimate in recovery slides or just active slides, right? Just sports slides you can wear around all day like you would a shoe, then the Zen Sport and Recovery slide, at least in my opinion, is your go-to for that. But after all that recovery and product placement, if you still have heel pain, you definitely need a shoe that number one eliminates as much micro motion as possible in the heel, while also giving you enough forgiveness. The New Balance Fresh Foam BBV2, I know I sound like a broken record over the last year or so with that shoe, but it is one of the best shoes for eliminating micro motion as well as cradling the foot, as well as being able to lock down an orthotic. So that shoe and the shoes like it obviously are still gonna be my favorite picks for that. And if you're somebody that wants a barefoot style shoe to play in, I know Zero is developing one of these, and by the time you're watching this video, hey, it might be out on the market and I have a review on it. But right now, the Uncivilized shoe to me is really the only game in town for that, and the only one that I kind of feel like has a lot of the upper components to it that you could actually play with on court. It's also designed by someone that does this all the time. So to me, if I'm gonna put my trust in a barefoot shoe on a basketball court, it's gonna be that one. Like I said, do we get more options in the future for that? We'll see, but also if you do want just a standard basketball shoe with the widest and most mellow toe box, something like the Adidas Dame Certified 3, randomly also has a pretty gentle toe box taper as well. Now, if you're someone that's absolutely sick of rolling your ankle, afraid of rolling it again, or have had multiple sprains or chronic instability, you need something that is just not gonna want your foot to roll inward, right? You're gonna want something that resists inversion. Now, something like the Wave Weight All City 12 Encore, absolutely fantastic for this. Also shoes that put you a little bit more foot flat to the ground, or shoes a little bit more bottom heavy and bottom stable, more of a flat tread profile, are also gonna be very good shoes for this, just because the anatomy and biomechanics of that shoe allow for it. Remember, uppers do not stop ankle sprains. High top, mid top shoes do not stop ankle sprains. Sure, they help with proprioception, and a lot of times it's nice because you can actually lock down a brace or other things like that. It's part of the puzzle, but it's not the largest piece. The largest piece is the stability of the midsole, the shape of the shoe, and how it puts you on the ground. And if you're somebody with arch pain, arch strain, tendinitis, whether that be posterior tibial or peroneal tendinitis, really the same shoes that are good for flat feet are also good for those straining type injuries. And if you're someone with ball of foot pain, remember, yeah, you do want padding in the forefoot. You also want a very stout midfoot, because a lot of times if you can offload the forefoot in the midfoot appropriately, then you're gonna have some pain reduction. That's why a lot of orthotics that people get for forefoot pain actually really focus in the arch area, because if you can get that arch cradled enough, it doesn't allow you to pummel through the front part of the shoe. Why do I go off on that tangent? Because you don't necessarily want something super soft and pillowy in the forefoot if the rest of the shoe is a floppy mess. You still need something with a little bit of structure to it to not allow your foot to actually push right through it, especially if you're playing on outdoor asphalt, cement, or concrete. And if you're one of the very unlucky players with shin splints, number one, a good pair of compression socks and an icing regimen can be a game changer for a lot of athletes. Obviously, consult your physician first before doing any treatment, but also shoes that give a little bit back to you and that don't feel like absolute bricks underfoot are going to help your tibia quite a bit. And if you're somebody with knee, hip, back, neck pain, really anything that's kind of a shock-induced type injury, right? You just need a little bit less shock up the chain. A lot of the same shoes that are good for high arched feet, a lot of the same shoes that are good for heel pain are also good for this, because they just don't allow that shock to go up your leg and into your back and neck. But also those are the same shoes that can hold an orthotic in them to further kind of diminish the damage that can happen from repeated shock, especially on outdoor courts. And of course, if you're a heavier player, you want some of the same characteristics of shoes that are better for shock absorption, but also you need a shoe that doesn't have paper mache uppers, right? You don't want to be pummeling through the uppers of the shoe, right? You need something that has a little bit more side-to-side containment. So really something like, once again, the Wave Weight All City 12 Encore, really nice kind of middle of the road pickup for a heavier player that also doesn't want a shoe that feels super heavy underfoot. And for players that are on the lighter weight end of the spectrum, you also don't want to be lugging around a super heavy shoe underfoot, kind of throwing off your timing and rhythm, but you also don't want a shoe that's just a dull brick that sacrifices everything just for weight reduction. So something like the Anta Kai 1, the Nike Sprainer 2, really nice pickups for that, whereas they're shoes that feel very lively underfoot, but also aren't just super bottom heavy shoes. And if you're someone that just needs the most breathable shoe out there, say you suffer from really bad athlete's foot, hyperhidrosis, you have very hot sweaty feet, once again, the Li-Ning Gamma is absolutely phenomenal for this. Also the Wave Weight Shadow 6, fantastic pickup. All right, so that's all I got. If you have ideas for another category you'd like to see in this video, maybe something I am missing, I'm always looking for kind of holes and gaps in this video, try to fill them with more and more recommendations to make this video more and more useful to more people. So let me know in the comments down below. And if you do want to take a deeper dive into the Zen Sport and Recovery slide, I will have that video linked up above, and make sure you subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.